Welcome to week 4 of our training videos, and this is going to be the last set of videos that we have. Next week, we're going to jump in to Bible study and get to practice that together. But this week, we will learn more about gospel conversation and having those together. So grab your field guide, your piece of paper, your training buddy, and let's dive in.
Has anyone showed you the 3 circles before?
Have you heard of
3 circles before?
Has anyone ever shared
The 3 circles with you?
before?
No.
So this is the first circle. So this represents the world that's broken.
All of us live in a broken world.
You only have to tune on the news and see
Suffering, death,
War, sickness.
rape, disease, it's everywhere, right?
But you know, God didn't actually create the world to be like this, full of brokenness, eh? Here's the second circle.
This circle represents God's perfect design.
God's perfect design was a world without brokenness.
A world full of love.
Full of joy.
and peace and unity.
But what we did was we sinned.
Sin could be anything from lying to murder.
Wait, so like just like normal lying or like hard lying?
And what sin did, it separated us from God's perfect design and threw us into brokenness.
And so people try all kinds of different things to get out of brokenness. They might try drugs or alcohol.
Or maybe chasing a career or money.
smoking, even bullying other people at school?
Oh, sleeping around, suicide, exactly, a good example. But it doesn't actually fix the problem of brokenness.
It's like a bungee cord. We just get snapped straight back into brokenness.
And ultimately, if people die in that state of brokenness and separated from God, and that means that that's eternal separation from God.
Do you know what this place is often called? Yes.
What God did was he didn't want to leave us in that place.
God loved us so much that he sent
His son Jesus to die on the cross.
Jesus was God, so he had no sin. And when he died and rose again, he actually took on all of our sin and cancelled it, like he crushed it.
He said if we would turn away from our sin and believe in Jesus and make Jesus
In the Lord of our life, we become
restored back into God's original design.
And you become a new creation, a new person in Christ.
And will restore us back into relationship with him. So there's only 2 kinds of people in this world. People that are in brokenness or God's perfect design. Where would you see yourself?
Probably right there, to be honest.
This circle.
I'm not sure.
Love?
brokenness.
Possibly love.
The bungee stage.
Yeah, the same.
and where would you like to
So where would you like to be? You'd like to be here? Yeah.
Right there.
Middle of this star circle.
One with God.
So here? So is there anything that's stopping you?
From turning and believing in Jesus?
And allow him to be Lord and King of your life.
Stubbornness.
Probably not.
Probably weed, to be honest.
Nothing's stopping me.
You know the awesome news about Jesus? He is the only way out.
If you try to clean yourself up before coming to Jesus, it's like trying to get clean before you take a shower.
Oh, see, yeah, I get that.
Is there anything stopping you?
We shared the 3 circles with 34 people. 4 were already believers. 13 chose to remain in brokenness, but some were deeply impacted. And 17 wanted to leave brokenness and receive Christ. There are many powerful ways to share the gospel, and the 3 circles is a great place to start.
If you turn on the television or look at your Facebook feed, it's very clear that we live in a broken world. There's a lot of death, a lot of disease and suffering. But we also see traces of beauty, like the beauty of a sunset or the laugh of a child. And that's because God's design was perfect when he made it. There was no death or disease or suffering. But starting with the very first people, we as humans chose to go our own way and leave God's perfect design. And that's called sin. And sin is what led to brokenness in our world and us and sinfulness. Well, we don't like to be in brokenness, this state that we're born in. So we try to get out. So for some, they try to get out on their own by climbing the ladder of success at work or school, thinking that'll get them out. Others try to get out themselves by doing good things or being religious and going to church and helping people. And while those are great things, they They don't get us out of brokenness. Some try to drown out the brokenness with drugs and alcohol or attempts at suicide or maybe even relationships. And these attempts to get out of brokenness ourselves end up snapping us back in like a bungee cord. But God loved us so much, He didn't want us to stay in brokenness. So He did for us what we could not do for ourselves. He provided the only way out, and that is through His Son, Jesus. You see, Jesus came down into our world and allowed Himself to be killed on a cross, taking on our sin. And 3 days later, He rose from the dead. And He declared that if anyone would turn from their way and surrender to Him and believe that Jesus came and died on the cross and rose from the dead, and would be willing to make Him their King or their Lord, that they would be forgiven and made new, and would then be able to experience God's perfect design for their life. Now I want to ask you, which of these two would you say you're in? Are you still in brokenness, or have you repented and believed in Jesus and are now back in His design? Okay, you're in brokenness. Well, which one of these two do you want to be in? Okay, great. Well, is there anything that keeps you from turning from your way and believing in the gospel of Jesus and making Him your Lord, your King? Okay, great. You know, when I chose to make this decision, I prayed a simple prayer, very similar to this picture. I just told God that I'm sorry for my sin, that I left your design, and for the ways that I've tried to get out of brokenness on my own. I'm ready to turn from my way and surrender to you. And I believe that this is true. And I want to make you my Lord so I can become new and experience your design for my life. Is that something you'd like to do? And then just pray with them. So this is the Three Circles Gospel presentation.